Brittany for anyone that's new here. I'm kind of just going to jump right into this video. So if you haven't already, I highly suggest that you watch the other two videos that I have posted just so you kind of know where we're coming from, because there's kind of a lot that goes into an IVF cycle, and I want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from. But if not, I hope you enjoy the video either way. So we were supposed to start our IVF cycle or start the medication in December, and per our doctor's recommendation, due to me having a pretty big cyst on my ovaries, they wanted us to wait until that had went down just to, have the most chances for a successful IVF cycle. So we agreed, and so it kind of got pushed back a whole another month, which was kind of, it sucked just a little bit, but it is what it is. So we're going to fast forward to January. So I was kind of just waiting on approval for my medication to make sure that we didn't have to pay out of pocket, because if we had to pay out of pocket, we would have to do our medication from overseas, and that's kind of another whole video that I'm going to be doing after this video. I just felt like this video was more important to do before the medication video, so stay tuned for that because that'll be after this video. But anyways, so when you're doing an IVF cycle, they want you to be on your period. So when you start your period, you give them a call, and then they go ahead and have you come in for a transvaginal ultrasound, and then they also do blood work at that point just to see where your hormones are, make sure there's no cyst that could affect the cycle, and check your lining and make sure that your body is doing what it's supposed to do when you start your cycle. So we had our medication class scheduled because we did get approved for our medication, so yay. So we had that scheduled, and surprisingly, on the same day that we went to our medication class is the day that I started my cycle. So I was kind of freaking out, kind of went into like a hyperventilate mode, like, oh my gosh, it's here, we're starting it. So per the medication class, they told me that I could just go ahead and come in for that ultrasound. So Friday, February 7th, is when I started my cycle day 1. I went in for an ultrasound, and they did all my hormones. And then the nurse tells me, okay, we'll give you a call back, and we'll let you know whether or not you're going to start the medication tonight, or if you're going to start the medication on Saturday, because it was a Friday. I said, okay. So we were anticipating that it was going to happen on Saturday, but the nurse called me back later that day and was like, Doc said it's time. You're going to start your medication, your stems, in the IVF world is what we call it, on tonight. So we went from having the medication class on that 6th to starting the medication the very next day. So it was kind of overwhelming, and it's nerve-wracking. You're doing everything, and so it's kind of like you're your own nurse. And so we started the medication, and then the following Monday I went back in for another ultrasound, just so they can make sure that the medication is doing what it needs to do, and make sure my follicles are growing. So what they look at in those ultrasounds once you start those medications is for your follicles to be getting bigger. They want them to be at like a 16 millimeters at least before they do the trigger shot. So the best way to describe it is your follicles are what holds your eggs. They cannot tell how many eggs they have. They can't tell how many follicles are going to have eggs in them. You could have 10 follicles and only end up with 2 eggs. They have no way of knowing. That's kind of why it's like a gamble in a sense of doing IVF. So the best way to describe it is your follicles are like water balloons. They get big, 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 and then once they get to that point of being the 16 millimeters or bigger, that is when then you go ahead and do the trigger shot. So the trigger shot, which I know if you've never done IVF, you're going to have no idea what I'm talking about. But the trigger shot is what you do 36 hours exact to before you do the egg retrieval. And it's very crucial. It's like the most important shot that you're going to pretty much take throughout the whole cycle, just because of if you miss it when the doctor goes in, there could be no egg. So that's a pretty big deal. So when I went on Monday for my ultrasound, I guess they didn't like what they seen, because later that day I got a call from the nurse stating that the doctor wanted to up my medication, and then and then I was moving the shots from my belly area to my arm. So, one, I've never heard of that. Two, I was freaking out because at that point I was already doing the shots twice a day, and they weren't that bad. Like, I thought they were going to be way worse, and they did not hurt at all. Maybe that's because I have a little extra fat in that area. I don't know. But the thought of having like a 1-inch needle going into my arm, kind of, so she's like where you get your flu shot, was scary. And I kind of like started freaking out, like, because my body wasn't reacting the way, they're like, your body's not reacting the way that we want it to react, so we're just going to up it to get your better chances. So I don't know if it has anything to do with, for those of you that don't know, I am plus size, and so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. They didn't really say. I don't know. Everybody's body is different, so you kind of just roll with it. So I switched it, upped the medication, had another ultrasound on Friday. You get to know Wanda very well. That's all I got to say. So, I go back in on Friday, and my husband wasn't going with me because I was like, there's no reason for you to go. Let's just not. You don't need to go. But on Friday was Valentine's Day, so we had plans afterwards, so he decided to come with me. And so I go in and we do the blood work again. They got to make sure your hormones are where they need to be. And then, date with Wanda again. And when she was looking at it, again, she's looking at the follicles, so I kind of know what they're looking at just because of all the other appointments that I had and ultrasounds that I had. And I happened to notice that the one side, which I later found out was my right side, had not grown at all from the last, on Monday when I was there just a couple days before. And so I said something to the nurse. I was like, they haven't grown, have they? And she said, no, they haven't. So then she goes to my left side, and that side you could tell was growing the way it needed to grow. So she gets done with ultrasound, and she, I sit up, and she starts talking to me. And she's like, I just want to warn you right now, the doctor may cancel this cycle. And I immediately started crying. One, I had no idea that could happen. Two, my next reaction was, do we have to pay for this all over again? And she was like, no, you don't have to pay it over. You're just going to need more medication. And thankfully, my mother's insurance covers the medication, so that wasn't like a big deal. But it sucked. So she's like, we're just gonna wait. The doctor has to look at the results, and it's gonna kind of just depend on your blood work, and then we're gonna go from there. So later that day, I got a call, and the nurse let me know that the doctor was going to cancel this cycle due to my follicles not growing and my estrogen levels not being where they wanted to be, and just to have our better chances. I'm not gonna cry because it is what it is. It sucked though. I thought I wasn't gonna cry. It sucked. So at the medication class, they give you a sheet with estimated dates of when you're going to start the medication, when your egg retrieval is going to be, when they're going to transfer the embryos, and an estimate of when you're going to find out you're pregnant. And it just so happened that we would have found out that we were pregnant on my husband's birthday. if everything would have went according to plan. And I just think that that just was like, you know, I keep telling everyone that it's like, we took steps, we were there, and then we like took 10 steps backwards is what I feel like. Because for my doctor's office protocol, they want you to have this cycle, so start your period this cycle, have one cycle where you don't have any medication in your system, and then on that third cycle, that is when we will go ahead and restart the whole process over again. So, you know, it's like, I was like expecting to be pregnant in March, and I was expecting, you know, to have a baby in November, and it's just like, I feel like you get your hopes up for them to just like get shattered again. And fertility freaking sucks. IVF sucks. There's so many unknowns, and you have no idea what is going to happen. And now I feel like I'm more worried to see, I don't know how to best describe it. I'm just worried. I'm worried that there might be issues, and what happens if this happens again? Does that mean anything about my eggs? I don't know. There's just a lot of unknowns, and I don't like it. We do have a follow-up appointment with the doctor coming up on the 17th of this year of March 2020. So I'm hoping to kind of get some more answers, but it's a long road ahead, and I just feel like we get so close to the finish line to just go all the way back to the start. So yeah, I'm praying for anyone that is going through this, because it is not for the faint of heart, and we are strong women, and we have strong partners besides us, because Lord knows we can be fine one day and crying the next. So I just bless our partners' souls. That's all I have to say. Well, thanks, guys. I love you. Thank you